A 77-year-old grandmother became president, and her enemies tried everything to stop her. Janet Jagan was not supposed to win. When she ran for president in December 1997, everyone said she was too old, too foreign, too different. She was a Jewish woman born in Chicago, living in a country where most people were Christian, Hindu, or Muslim. She was white in a nation of mostly black and Indian people. She was 77 years old when most leaders were decades younger. Her opponents attacked her every single day. They said an American had no right to lead Guyana. They said she was a communist who would destroy the country. They said she was too sick, too weak, too tired to run a nation. But on December 19, 1997, Janet Jagan won the election and became the president of Guyana. She became the first woman president in South America, the first Jewish leader of any Caribbean or South American nation, and the first American-born person ever elected president of any country. But winning the election was just the beginning of her battle. The real fight was about to start, and it would almost break her. To understand how Janet became president, you need to know her story. She was born Janet Rosenberg on October 20, 1920, in Chicago. Her parents were Jewish immigrants who worked hard to survive. Her father sold plumbing equipment and her mother raised Janet and her brother Maurice. They were not rich. They lived through the Great Depression when millions of Americans lost everything. But her father loved books, and every week he brought home stacks from the library. Janet read everything. She learned about the world, about other countries, about people fighting for freedom. Those books changed her life. She went to college, studying at different universities before becoming a nursing student at Cook County School of Nursing. In December 1942, while working as a nurse at Cook County Hospital, she met a young man from a place called British Guyana. His name was Cheddi Jagan. He was studying to become a dentist. Cheddi was Hindu, and his family came from India to work on sugar plantations. He told Janet about his country, how the British controlled everything, how workers lived in poverty while rich plantation owners made millions. Janet and Cheddi fell in love. They got married on August 5, 1943. 8 months after meeting, Janet made a crazy decision. She agreed to leave America and move to British Guyana with Cheddi. When Janet arrived in December 1943, she was only 23 years old. She stepped into a completely different world. British Guyana was a colony, which meant Britain ruled it like they owned it. A small group of rich people controlled all the sugar and rice plantations. Thousands of workers, most of them black or Indian, worked brutal hours for almost no money. There were no unions, no workers' rights, no health care for poor people. Women had zero power in politics. But Janet did not come to sit quietly. Within days, she joined the labor union and started organizing workers. She went door to door, talking to domestic workers, mostly women who worked all day for pennies. She helped them understand they deserved better. For 10 years, she worked as a dental nurse in Cheddi's clinic. But every free moment she spent organizing, teaching, and building a movement for change. In 1946, she helped create the Women's Political and Economic Organization, fighting for women's rights when nobody else was. That same year, she helped start the Political Affairs Committee, bringing together people who wanted independence from Britain. On January 1, 1950, everything got bigger. Janet, Cheddi, and others founded the People's Progressive Party, the PPP. This party had one goal: end British rule and give power to working people. Janet became the General Secretary, doing all the organizing work behind the scenes. That same year, she ran for Georgetown City Council and won, becoming the first woman ever elected. In 1953, Britain finally allowed elections. The PPP won big. Janet won her seat and became the first female deputy speaker of the legislature. For 133 days, they ran the government. They raised wages, built schools, improved healthcare. But Britain was watching, and they did not like it. Winston Churchill, the British Prime Minister, thought Janet and Cheddi were communists spreading Soviet ideas. Britain sent in soldiers, removed the government, and took power back. In 1955, they threw Janet in jail for 6 months just for her political beliefs. After she got out, they kept her under house arrest for 2 years. She had to report to the police every week like a criminal. Churchill even changed the constitution to make sure Janet and Cheddi could never become president or prime minister. They wanted to destroy her. They failed. During these tough years, Janet and Cheddi had 2 children. Joey became a dentist, and later a politician. Nadira became a goldsmith. They gave Janet and Cheddi 5 grandchildren. The Jagan family lived simply in a house Cheddi built in 1966. There were no fancy cars, no expensive clothes, no big jewelry. Cheddi loved hammocks and put them everywhere. They took walks by the ocean, visited the zoo with grandchildren, and Janet wrote children's stories for them. Despite being political leaders, they lived like regular people. In 1957, new elections happened and the PPP won again. This time, Britain let them govern but watched closely. Janet became Minister of Labor, Health and Housing. She created health clinics in poor villages where people had never seen a doctor. She changed labor laws to protect workers. In 1963, she became Minister of Home Affairs. But violence broke out in 1964 between different ethnic groups, and Janet resigned in protest. That same year, someone bombed the PPP headquarters while Janet was inside. She survived, but it was scary. From 1964 to 1992, the PPP lost power. Another party ruled for almost 30 years, and many people believed they cheated in elections to stay in power. During these long years, Janet became editor of the Mirror newspaper and later Thunder newspaper. She kept writing, kept fighting, kept organizing. She was elected to Parliament in 1973 and kept winning elections in 1980, 1985, and 1992. She served in Parliament for 46 years, longer than anyone in Guyana's history. The American government stripped away her U.S. citizenship in the 1960s because of her socialist beliefs. The CIA and British intelligence watched her for years. They called her a communist, a troublemaker, a threat. But Janet never stopped. In 1992, international observers came to watch Guyana's elections for the first time. The PPP won fair and square. Cheddi became president at age 74. Janet became First Lady. She represented Guyana at the United Nations. She ran the National Art Gallery. She worked on children's rights. Even though she was getting older and her health was not great, she kept working. Then, on March 6, 1997, the worst thing happened. Cheddi had a heart attack and died in Washington, D.C. He was 79 years old. Janet was crushed. They had been married for 54 years. They built everything together, fought together, raised children together. The whole country mourned. The PPP came to Janet and said they needed her to lead. She was 76 years old, tired, and heartbroken. She said no. But they kept asking. They told her the country needed her experience, her strength, her wisdom. Finally, she agreed. On March 17, 1997, Janet Jagan was sworn in as Prime Minister and first Vice President. She became the first female Prime Minister in Guyana's history. She stepped into her dead husband's shoes and kept the government running. 9 months later, elections had to happen. The PPP asked Janet to run for president. She was 77 years old now. Most people retire at that age. Most people spend time with grandchildren, rest, enjoy life. But Janet said yes. She agreed to run. The campaign was brutal. Her opponents attacked her from every direction. They said she was too old to lead. They said her health was bad. They said she would die in office. They said she was not really Guyanese because she was born in Chicago. They said she was Jewish and could not understand a Christian and Hindu country. They said she was white and could not lead a nation of black and Indian people. They called her a communist who would wreck the economy. They said she was Cheddi's puppet, that she had no ideas of her own. The attacks came every single day. Opposition parties held rallies where they mocked her age, her appearance, her accent. Some people even made threats. But Janet kept campaigning. She traveled across the country, meeting people, listening to their problems, explaining her plans. She talked about building more schools, creating more jobs, improving healthcare, protecting workers' rights. She reminded people that she had lived in Guyana for 54 years. She reminded them that she went to jail for this country. She reminded them that she fought for independence when others stayed silent. On December 19, 1997, the votes were counted. Janet Jagan won. At 77 years old, she became president of Guyana. She became the first woman president in all of South America. She became the first Jewish person to lead any country in South America or the Caribbean. She became the first American-born person ever elected president of any country in the world. She became the first woman to command Guyana's military forces. It was a historic moment. Women across Guyana celebrated. Working people celebrated. Everyone who had fought for independence celebrated, but the opposition was furious. They refused to accept the results. They claimed the election was rigged even though international observers said it was fair and free. Opposition leader Desmond Hoyt demanded a recount. His supporters organized protests. Tensions rose across the country. Violence was possible. For weeks, the opposition kept fighting the results. They filed legal challenges. They organized demonstrations. They tried everything to stop Janet from taking power. Janet faced a terrible choice. She could fight back hard and risk the country breaking apart, or she could compromise to keep peace. On January 17, 1998, less than a month after winning, Janet made a deal with Desmond Hoyt. She agreed to hold new elections early, in the year 2000, instead of waiting the full term. It was a painful compromise. She won the election fairly, but agreed to cut her time short just to keep the country stable. Many of her supporters were angry. They said she gave in too easily. But Janet put the country first. She did not want violence. She did not want people dying over politics, so she agreed to the deal and took office as president. Now came the hard part, actually running the country. Janet took over a nation with serious problems. The economy was struggling, unemployment was high. Many people lived in poverty, the infrastructure was old and falling apart. Schools needed repairs, hospitals needed equipment and medicine. Roads had potholes everywhere. The country owed money to international banks. Different ethnic groups, mainly Black Guyanese and Indian-Guyanese, had tensions between them. Crime was rising. Drug trafficking was increasing. And on top of all this, half the country's politicians did not want Janet to succeed. They opposed everything she tried to do. Every policy she proposed, they fought. Every law she wanted, they blocked. Every speech she gave, they criticized. It was like trying to drive a car while someone else kept grabbing the steering wheel. But Janet got to work. She focused on what she knew best, helping working people. She increased spending on education because she believed every child deserved a chance to learn. She pushed for more health clinics in rural areas where poor families had no access to doctors. She worked on creating jobs, bringing in foreign investment while protecting Guyanese workers. She continued Cheddi's work on opening up the economy, but kept social programs strong. She met with business leaders, union leaders, church leaders, community leaders. She tried to bridge the divide between ethnic groups. She appointed people from different backgrounds to important positions. She traveled across the country, visiting villages and towns, listening to regular people's concerns. She worked long hours every day, reading reports, signing documents, making decisions. At 77 years old, she put in more hours than leaders half her age, but the stress was enormous. Being president of any country is hard. Being president when half the country opposes you is harder. Being president at 77 years old is even harder. Janet started feeling the pressure. She had trouble sleeping, she felt tired all the time. her health started declining. In July 1999, just a year and a half into her presidency, Janet traveled to Rio de Janeiro for a summit meeting. When she got back to Guyana, she did not feel right. She had chest pains and felt exhausted. Her doctors got worried and admitted her to the hospital. They ran tests and discovered she had a serious heart problem. The doctors immediately sent her to Akron, Ohio in the United States for more tests. For weeks, people in Guyana worried. Would their president survive? Would she be okay? The opposition started talking about who would replace her. Some even celebrated, thinking she was finished. On July 23rd, the doctors released Janet from the hospital. They gave her medicine and said she did not need heart surgery, but she needed to rest. She needed to slow down. She needed to reduce stress. Janet came back to Guyana and tried to keep working, but she knew the truth. Her body could not handle the pressure anymore. Being president required energy, strength, stamina. She was 78 years old now with a bad heart. The doctors warned her that continuing at this pace could kill her. On August 8, 1999, Janet Jagan made one of the hardest decisions of her life. She resigned as president. She went on television and told the nation she could not give them the strong, energetic leadership they deserved. She said her health made it impossible to continue. She apologized for not being able to finish her term. Many people cried when they heard the news. They loved Janet. They respected her. They wanted her to stay. But she knew it was time. On August 11, 1999, her vice president Bharat Jagdeo was sworn in as the new president. Janet's presidency lasted only 20 months, from December 1997 to August 1999. Those 20 months were incredibly hard, but also historic. Janet proved that a woman could lead Guyana. She proved that age was not a barrier to leadership. She proved that someone born in another country could love Guyana as much as anyone born there. She showed that despite facing endless opposition, despite health problems, despite attacks from all sides, a person could still stand up and fight for what they believed in. After resigning, Janet did not disappear. She stayed active in the PPP party. She kept writing for newspapers. She helped create the Cheddi Jagan Research Center to preserve the history of Guyana's independence movement. She worked with her daughter Nadira, organizing documents and artifacts. She wrote children's books teaching young Guyanese about their country. She visited schools and talked to students. In 2008, when she was 87 years old, party members still voted for her in huge numbers, showing how much they respected her. She received the Order of Excellence, Guyana's highest honor. She won international awards including the UNESCO Gandhi Gold Medal. Universities gave her awards. Film festivals made documentaries about her life. On March 28, 2009, Janet Jagan died at her home in Georgetown. She was 88 years old. She died from an abdominal aneurysm, which is when a blood vessel bursts. The government declared 2 days of national mourning. On March 31, they held a state funeral at the Parliament buildings. Thousands and thousands of people lined the streets to say goodbye. They came from villages, from cities, from all over Guyana. They stood in the hot sun for hours just to pay respects. Many were crying. They called her the mother of the nation. Her body was cremated and her ashes were buried next to Cheddi's in his home village of Port Morant. After her death, her daughter donated the family home to the National Trust so people could visit and see how simply the Jagans lived despite being presidents and prime ministers. Janet Jagan's presidency was short, but it changed Guyana forever. She broke the biggest barrier in politics. She proved women could lead nations. Before Janet, many Guyanese thought only men could be president. She proved them wrong. After Janet, more women ran for office, more women became ministers, more women led organizations. She opened the door for them. Her presidency also showed that age should not stop you from serving your country. While her health eventually forced her to resign, she still accomplished important work in those 20 months. She kept the country stable during a difficult transition after Cheddi's death. She maintained social programs that helped poor people. She worked to heal ethnic divisions. She represented Guyana with dignity on the world stage. Most importantly, she showed young girls across Guyana and across South America that they could dream of becoming president one day. She showed them that being a woman, being old, being born somewhere else, none of that mattered if you had courage and determination. People remember Janet for many things, but her presidency stands out. That 77-year-old grandmother who everyone said was too old, too weak, too foreign, she won the election and led the country. She faced attacks every single day but never gave up. She worked until her body literally could not continue. She put her country before her own health. That is true leadership. That is real sacrifice. That Chicago nurse who got on a boat in 1943 lived in Guyana for 66 years. She gave everything to that country. She went to jail for it. She was put under house arrest for it. She was threatened and attacked for it. And when they needed her most, after Cheddi died, she stepped up one last time and became president. Her presidency may have been short, but her impact will last forever. Tell us what leadership lesson you learned from Janet's story.